Laughter Monkey Music Show. Today I find Stephen Gibb. Welcome back, man.
Great to be back, Sean. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm glad
Appreciate
to
it.
have you back. I know you don't do a lot of these, and we've been talking about getting this done. Been busy, but you're a busy man. And as we're catching up,
Apparently,
a lot going on in your life. That's a beautiful is that a cabinet behind you? What is that? That wouldn't.
that's some hand carved antique stuff that my mother bought. My studio door is right
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Okay, and then if you go there, there's my mother's kitchen. So that's how I stay close to mom and dad as they get old. Is I built my studio in my old in my brother's this room over here used to be
Yeah.
my brother's and I'm the oldest of five. So that was like our TV room, playroom, and then we all grew up, moved out of the house and stuff, and then there was that big room with another big room next to it, and I was like, you know, it would be good since we have all that gear from our old studio that we closed down all those
Yeah.
years ago. We have all that gear in storage. I was like, I could just put it back in here. And so we built the walls out. So it's, full blown studio. That's where we did the Kill the Robot record. That's where we just recently did the Corrosion of Conformity record, or part of it, which is still in progress.
Are
But
you producing? Are you producing it? Recording? Like, what are you
no,
doing
no,
with it?
I'm just facilitating a room, and if they need any extra opinions, they'll ask me. But for the most part, it's Warren Riker at the helm, and Pepper Keenan and Woody Weatherman. We're in town cutting guitars, and now we're done with that. And I'm going back into songwriting mode for Kill the Robot for the next record. But the first record is coming out in July.
Yeah,
The
you got a
next,
lot going on. So let's talk about the Kill the Robot before we get any sidetracks. I think you and I get sidetracked here.
yes,
So today actually is the day the new single comes out because we're posting in the future. Woo!
yay.
So let's talk about it. Now, last time you were on officially, we talked not on texting. It was almost a year ago. You had Killer Robot like four singles, I think, since then, right? It was like a
We
slow
did,
drip
yeah. Yep.
waterfall thing. I don't know. So is this gonna be for an album? The song, first
Well,
song for the
yes.
album, or how?
Well, the way it worked is okay. So for me, this is a bit of a different kind of project because it I was not really thinking about starting another project. I was actually looking to retire and just focus on producing and making music for film and
Right.
you know other things. My one of my best friends and one of my closest collaborators for a long time, one of my greatest friends from childhood, it was a brilliant engineer, producer, and artist by the name of Brett Cosmo Thorngren. And his dad was a pretty famous producer who also recently passed. Eric Thorngren, who did Power Station and a bunch of great records in the
Right.
80s and 70s. And so Brett passed away a
Years, all
few
right.
years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. And our other closest friend in that circle of people was Gil Bitton, however you want to pronounce it. Gil, formerly of the band Endo from the early 2000s. Gil and I have stayed friends over the years. He's a great singer. He's a great songwriter. He's much more of he's much less of a metal guy than his former band would have alluded to. So, a lot of the new metal comparisons, if anything, I mean, we have a song on the record called No One Else that, that might be the only thing that might kind of sound
Yeah.
like new metal, but it's not. It's just metal to me.
Old
You
metal.
know what I mean? Is it heavy? Are there guitars in it? Are the drums fucking loud? Then it's metal. Is the singer fucking singing? Yeah, it's metal. But so him and I started writing some songs. I didn't really want to, but I felt
Mhm.
that the songs were getting interesting, like just different than anything I'd ever tried to do or wanted to do. And I think that was the same for him. And we pulled in a couple other friends of ours to round out the band. And we just figured we'd make a record and just release it and not even really uh, pursue, going on tour or doing the other things to
But it was like a
promote that a lot
creative
of people
therapy,
do.
right? It evolved. I think when we spoke originally, it was originally that was the impetus. The
That
passing
was,
of your
yeah,
friend was a creative, like you had to do something to get it out of your soul, right?
That was the original intention, you know. And then I think what happened was, as we were kind of recording the record, and we were really making it kind of an ambitious production because we had the luxury of it. Honestly, if I didn't have my own studio, we wouldn't have had that luxury. But I'm very grateful that we did, and I think we made a record that we really couldn't wait for people to hear. The problem is when you're, a new band, and I don't care if you're 15 or 50. Um, if you're a new band, you're starting at zero. Uh,
Right.
so we've slowly dripped out a few singles just to see stylistically, what are people gravitating towards, and all the initial reactions have been really good. I mean, we did a handful of pretty epic shows last year. I had a couple of personal injuries that I had to attend to in the latter part of 2024 and the early part of 2025, but I'm back in the saddle again and feeling good, playing great, singing good. Everything's good. Everything's good.
Right.
So, I figured since we had taken our time to see if, this stuff could be competitive from a single standpoint, I felt it was a good time to try and release a record and try to get some muscle behind it. So we're going to release this next song, Western Shores, as it's just kind of like the next sort of chapter of singles from this
Hmm.
record. I mean, I don't know. The interesting thing is that the only rules that exist now is that there aren't any. What
True.
works for one band might not work for my band, and what works for mine might not work for other people. But I think that it's been very difficult in a post-COVID world to launch a new band and get a booking agent, get certain things tiled in because everybody's back out on tour that was supposed to be on tour. Like the market's flooded. There's not a lot of, it's been interesting, but we're getting some real some exciting offers coming our way, and we're looking at really how to make those happen. And I'm super excited with the actual release of the album because I think all of the for those that care, the singles that we've dripped out up to this point are all stylistically very well, they're similar enough, but they're different enough that
I think they're
I
pretty
think
different. I
it's
think they have a different fingerprint on them. As a fan of your music, I'm like, I really just couldn't describe it. I'm also glad you have an album because loading singles to me makes me crazy on my phone trying to organize that stuff. You gotta go back and read.
yeah. If you got any
But
kind of
I'm your age
OCD
too.
or
I think I'm like
anything
a
like
year over
that,
you, so like kind of.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is like, you know, I, I'm, I don't know how to say this. I just really love music. I just love, it's everything to me. You know what I mean? So whether
Mhm.
I'm making it or I'm
I get it.
listening to it, I'm a huge fan. I actually, for the first time in my life, I like the music on my own record, which historically throughout life, whenever anything has been finished, it's like, I don't listen to it again. I don't ever look at it. I never even think about it. It's just something that was a moment in time, and now we're over here going that way. You
You
know?
think because you were achieving stuff like at the times, like you were trying to be a part of a project, and it feels like this one is much more organic and it became a band. I mean, you can play in put a group together, but like a lot of times you came in and joined other bands with other people of music you liked, but
Yeah.
the process was always different. This really just feels like it kind of came from you, like the seed planted, you know what I'm saying, on its own.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this because it's just my experience, but with like in the modern era, they refer to things, like people that are sons or daughters of so and so as nepo babies or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's very cute. You can just marginalize people for anything now, which is cool.
Right.
Great, great, thank you for that. But it's always been that way. It's like when I was young, everybody thinks, oh wow, all the doors are open for you. It's like, no, actually, all the doors are open just so they can get slammed in your face. So it's like the difference is there really isn't much. It's like I'm starting at zero just like anybody else. I have connections, I have friends. I'm not getting anywhere any quicker than anyone else. And I don't think it's because I made a shitty record. I think it's because this is a hard business and it's a hard way The system changes, the what's, how to promote changes sometimes month to month. It's never the same for any situation at any step in time, and that's probably everybody else's business too. I don't know, I just exist in this business, so
No,
that's
no,
all
I
I
think
know.
this is actually a
But
good topic if we can touch that for a second, though. Because
mhm.
like I said, one of the things with you, and it's no different. Like Dweezil's always a good touch point because Dweezil's got also an iconic father, who's also a
And
fantastic
Dweezil's an
musician and stuff.
absolute genius in his own right. I mean, he's
Like your
brilliant.
dad, you have nothing like your dad. So literally, you have that name, which sometimes can actually hurt you because they want something different. And even if you
Yeah,
could do it, the market's not there for it anyhow. If the Bee Gees released an album right now, it would get the attention because of who it was. But who knows even how it
yeah,
would do? So it's not even a fair
exactly.
comparison nowadays when people do that to any artist.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's funny the way it was when I first joined Black Label Society back. Yeah, I don't know if it was like early 2000, late 99. I don't remember now, but it was. Um, I you know, Zach made me audition. It was the first time I ever auditioned, but it was like purely ceremonial, like just to haze me out a little bit. He was like, well, you never played bass before, and I was like, just give me the bass.
it's
Wait,
my drunk guitar.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
exactly, exactly. But so,
coming.
um, but I remember when he was kind of being serious and told me like I was in the band and stuff. He's like, I think we should maybe not. We think about maybe not using your real name, your real last name, because even he knew that that name was going to somehow overshadow or just mess with stuff somehow, because that's the way it's back then, especially. This is
Yeah.
25 years ago. Um, and So he just gave me the nickname of SOB, which was like, Steve on bass, son of Barry, scumbag on bass. I mean, he just had a million, it was, right
As long
from
as
the,
that could.
yeah, of course. And so, nobody knew who I was when I was in that band, which was great because I really wasn't anybody. I was just some kid in my mind, I was some kid from Miami who just moved to LA who was looking for a job, and it was really like after it was a couple of years of being out there and nothing going on. And I was like, man, all those doors aren't swinging open and this isn't happening and that's not happening. And then all of a sudden things started happening, you know what I mean? So the nepo thing, I think it really depends on the
Oh, I think
nepo
it's lazy
baby.
anyhow. You know what I
You
mean?
know what I
Like
mean?
Nepo is if you just have your parents are celebrities so rich and you literally
Yeah,
just take pictures of yourself on Instagram and just do stuff. That maybe could be a Nepo baby thing. But if you have a career, your parents' name doesn't usually help you unless they give you money and
yeah.
you start buying up, I don't know, houses and stuff. And I don't know, get into politics, but generally
Well,
starting
yeah,
off with money doesn't usually make a difference.
yeah. It doesn't. But anyway, the ironic thing is that by the time people started figuring it out, I kind of already had a little bit of a career going on my own merit. So it was like, okay, well then I sort of skated through a little bit, you know what I mean, without getting too much of the celebrity goo on me.
Maybe they wouldn't talk to me. Like you actually went out there and you got enough of it proved to yourself. You're like, it doesn't really matter because you proved
Well,
yourself out there.
it doesn't, and I think sometimes, like certain things in life, like for instance, like when I was growing up, my father's celebrity was sort of the chip on my shoulder. I really didn't like being the son of a BG. It did not produce all of the
Probably.
the promises that people thought it was going to somehow produce for me. It produced a lot of like, people bullying me or not knowing who your friends are because everybody wants to be your friends because of who your dad is, whatever. So I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, but the beautiful thing is that I could, you can run but you can't hide. It's like once my uncles had passed away and my father felt that it was time to uh respectfully go out there and represent those songs for himself and for them.
Mhm.
um when he asked me to be a part of that, I was very hesitant to do so because then it's like, oh, now I'm joining him. You know what I mean? It was like, it's like Darth Vader, come Luke. I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
I'm imagining a scene from The Godfather, maybe Godfather 2, end of 3. I don't know.
Not that
Sure.
my dad is Darth Vader by any means, but I'm just saying it was like, I don't know, that could ruin everything for me because I exist outside of his universe mostly professionally. You know what I mean?
But
But
what year was that? So that was like what in the 20s, right? That was
that was like 2010 or
2015,
something,
15, yeah, 15. Okay, yeah. It all
28,
blends now. Sorry, Steven.
2008.
It's all blending now for me.
No, it's
The
fine. It's
dates.
everything blends now. It doesn't really matter. Time doesn't exist. It's an illusion. But yeah, it's just kind of it's just funny how the experience of playing those BG songs with him in the process, actually learning how to become a real guitar player, a real singer, a real musician that services the song, that makes the song the biggest ego in the room. That's all the stuff I learned being around him and being in that world where it's like it's because my dad's a great producer, he's a great writer, he's a great this, he's great that, but he's not somebody that can teach you those things. Like I don't know Wolfgang, but apparently his dad's not much of a guitar teacher. You know what I
I
mean?
was gonna say, and the
And
same thing with
and
Frank.
that's
Frank is the
probably
same way
why
with Weasel.
and that's
You
probably
know,
why Wolf is such a great player and such a great musician, because he had to find it out on his own in his own way, much like I had to. Like my dad just tuned the guitar for me once and he was like, good luck. And that's kind of how it goes. And thank God for that. But the beautiful thing is that once we got to work together and I was clean, he was ready to do stuff again. Like it was a good time for us to heal a lot of the old BS between us. And I needed to let go of a lot of my own
kid.
just just bullshit that I had from years of being Barry Gibb's son, if you will. So it really helped, and I'm really beyond grateful that I had that opportunity to participate in the legacy of my family, even in the smallest of ways, because I make no mistake, I am no Robin or Morris Gibb on any level, but God, I love them with all my heart. So I always just felt that it was a very rare opportunity to express the love that I have for my family and their music without it being uh, weird. Just me and dad out there singing songs. That's what people, families that sing, that's what they do.
The one thing and sometimes we talked this before though. Like you and I've always said this before. There's only one, Barry Gibb. There's only one Maurice. There's only one. So why would you need something to sound like anybody else? I don't need another Barry Gibb. There's only one. There was only one this. There's only one that. I don't need more than. We don't need the world's not need another David Lee Roth. Believe me. What we need
No,
is an original of something else. You
without a
know,
doubt, I agree with that. I do. I wish that the record industry loved that idea still, but I don't
not an
really.
industry. It's the bank. The record companies are really just privileged banks, and some of them have some good
Yeah,
music sense. Is really what it
yeah.
was, or what it is. You know what I'm saying? You know, like for me, I like records. Why I'm excited that you do a record because then we get nerdy and you can do sequencing and you can kind of feel the whole idea of the album. Because when
Oh
you do
yeah.
singles, I don't know how to place things like you know,
Well, the thing
um,
is you're a musician. You understand the longer form narrative of a record because before you were a musician. I imagine you were a kid looking at vinyl records, entering into a world of make believe through
yeah,
reading lyrics and looking at pictures on the vinyl and wondering like, oh my God, these Black Sabbath
yeah,
guys are really scary, you
exactly.
know. And then you get lucky enough to meet them someday, and you're like, these are the nicest guys in the world. But when
I
you're
hear that a lot. They go, "What about so and so?" I'm like, "So nice." Like everybody,
oh,
if you're actually at my show twice, so you're on twice now. That's it. You're a nice guy. Like I will not have idiots back. Like if I had once, like they're really cool, they're fantastic. I don't need to talk to them again. Like the industry
yeah,
is designed. All your favorites are probably the coolest people in the world. There's a reason.
some of them, you do meet
Not
the
all of them.
occasional hero that can be disappointing, but
There's no
I don't.
secrets now who's not the coolest people anymore. With the internet, most people know who the coolest.
It's
Yeah.
mostly out there, and to be fair, man, some people just have bad days. It's like for instance, I know Alec Baldwin gets a lot of shit for being
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin, really,
Yeah.
but the fact of the matter is, if you had to deal with the fucking bullshit
Cameras.
of walking out of your apartment every day in New York City and being harassed by people, and not every day for the last year, like every day for the last
Oh, prior.
30.
Yeah,
You know what I
before
mean?
everything happened, I'll say before everything happened, the movie was like, I don't know, like I'd have moved. I couldn't imagine being around people like me now. Like even in the
Mm,
same town I grew up in, I ended up moving back. I'm like, I didn't really need to know people. Like even the irony of me having a show,
mhm.
I've gone to concerts and only a handful of people recognize me, and I love it. And I've actually been people like say something to me, and I'll say something like, "Oh yeah, I watch a show." I'm like, "Oh wait, that was you!" Like literally, they don't even know. And I joke, I call myself the John Goodman of podcast because I don't really care. The show's not named after me. I don't need to
Yeah.
know. I don't ever know me. I just want to talk about music to people, and
Yeah.
then you should. I don't really care about all the other stuff. So I couldn't even imagine
Dude, I
being
have to
like,
be honest. I don't care if anybody ever knows my name. As a matter of fact, if I am the world's most invisible musician, I'm totally fine with that too. I just love making music. I love being in the studio. I love playing shows. I love hanging out with my buddies that are musicians, and I love meeting people that dig the music. There's been times where I get off stage and people are like, "Oh, did you see that last band? They were killer." And I was like, "Yeah, I was the guitar player." And they're like, "What?" It's like, so I don't really care that I'm not that interesting looking or memorable anymore. It's like they dug the music, and that's really
it's even better.
like,
It's even better actually.
yeah. I want. It's like sometimes I envy people like like whether it's Slipknot or Sleep Token or whatever. It's like you get
Oh
that
yeah,
anonymity. That anonymity. That's sweet.
that's
It's
like
like
being
it's
the
that.
Invisible Man. That is true. You get full power and then
Yeah,
nothing.
it's pretty.
You know,
That's pretty cool. And I'd always wanted to. Like because I was such a huge Kiss fan when I was a kid. I was like, that was the dream, was to be in a band like Kiss. And then you get older and you're like, I'm not putting on makeup for an hour before every show and an hour
like a lot
afterwards.
of work. I respect artists that have their own performance stuff, but I thought like the thought of me doing it, I'm like, I don't know how they do it. 'Cause I don't even like literally get a wedding coming up. I'm like, oh, I could wear pants, like dress pants, like this is that to me just feels performance. I couldn't even imagine it having to get dressed up. It's too much.
Yeah, yeah. No, I listen. I respect and admire all those guys. Um,
It's another
and
layer.
I bet. What's that?
It's like another layer of their show that they have to do.
Well, absolutely. And listen, I'm all about like, bang for your buck. I mean, look, when you go see Tool, um, you're not walking out of that show wondering how much you just paid for those tickets. You just went on a
The
freaking
event.
adventure
Yeah.
sonically and visually that, nobody in the band, you barely even pay attention to the band members. It's so like the music and the visuals that they provide that and the quality of the mix live for them. It'll change your DNA, dude. It's like
I've yet to see them live. It's one of the few bands I've yet to see live.
I highly recommend it before they don't want to do it anymore
Uh,
because
I
I
know.
mean,
Anytime a band comes, I'm like, I gotta see it. They can't know because everything changes with everybody so fast. You know.
yeah, and I mean I'm not a drummer, but I am well, some of my favorite musicians are drummers, and Danny Carey is absolutely
Yeah.
I don't know, he's another level of musicianship that I think comes around once a generation, like a Neil Peart or a John Bonham, or you know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
sort of the definitive drummer of the 90s, 2000s, in my opinion. I don't think anybody comes close. Maybe, I mean, obviously you got your Dave Grohl, Taylor Hawkins, these guys
Different,
were
different apples and oranges.
different realm though, different realm. And but I mean, I just think Danny's just like, I don't know, just pure power, skill,
yeah.
and relentless creativity.
I would compare, yeah, 'cause those guys are more rock drummers or something. But Danny's different. It'd be like compare like it was like when Neil Peart used to be on the Rock Circus magazine list with like Tommy Lee and like every other rock drummer and everything else. You're like, yeah, they're all great drummers, but Neil Peart is just so different than everybody else. Like I think
Yeah.
Danny's differently
Were
too,
you
like
a,
that.
were
Like you
you a
can't.
Rush fan?
Oh yeah, still am.
Yeah.
I was explaining to my
I,
wife the other day about Neil in the car. Now, like I'm like the stuff he's gone through in his retirement. I go, he's the kind of drummer like he went into drum lessons while he was like one of the best drummers in the world. He's like, I need to take drum lessons. I'm like, that's a musician.
yeah.
And this is he didn't he's not a rock star. He wrote books, he took time, he had tragedies, and he get on his motorcycle between gigs, just see you later. I'm gonna these little journeys and jaunts before shows. And no one would talk
Yeah.
to him. Like that was who he was. And I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, that's just such an artist. Like
Yeah.
beyond just, you know, oh
He's
yeah, I'm a
it just
huge
authentically is he was what he was. You know what I mean? There was no pretense whatever with that guy. And it's amazing. Like that's the band I've seen live more than any other band in my life.
really?
Yeah, very strange. Just I grew up with a guy, my buddy Mike Wolofsky. He was down the street, and when he was real young, he learned how to. He started playing drums real young, and he learned all the Rush stuff on the drums when we were like 13.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I don't want to play drums anymore. And he gets a bass and he starts learning all the Geddy Lee. So I was like, he was one of my best friends. So I was hanging out with him all the time. And at that time, I played keyboards and synth. I hadn't even picked up guitar yet. And And Rush made me feel like it was cool to play the keyboards. Like it's okay
It
because
was one of
Kenny
the few
does
bands
this
back
and then he
then.
does that. You know what I mean?
Big Money, right? That was a big money.
Oh, I love that big dude. I was listening to Big Money the other day, like not even 4 days ago. I love.
You can't escape Rush. Like every part of my life, like there's a point where I was to school I was in Atlanta. I'm up in New England now, but in a recording institute, and the only reason I went to the school is because it was a 24 track studio. It was actually 24 track each side. The walls are like floating walls. So at the time, it was this high tech thing.
Yeah.
And first thing we did for recording, the teacher came in and talked about drum and recording and miking and stuff. He goes, and in Rush when he'd record, they have he'd mic above him, but then he'd also tape a mic to his chest. I don't know what's at the time because he'd be drumming and wherever you point, whichever way you lean to, he had that there to pick it up also.
A PCM mic, or a lavalier,
a lavalier. I think it was like a lavalier at the time for like whatever this is. So even to this day, I still remember that because I'm like always being innovative and trying to do something different.
Yeah,
so basic.
And
that was
but that's why I think what people don't get about people that aren't studio rat musicians don't understand is like that tinkering, that mining for gold. Like we could sit there and work on a snare drum sound all day.
Oh yeah,
and it's maddening. It's just it'll make you insane.
But when you get it,
when you get it, and then you hear it back, and you're like, yeah, we got it. Sometimes we miss it. Like sometimes carving out the bass frequencies is just the biggest nightmare that you'll ever, depending on the song. We always want to get it right, and there's always another mix. There's always another. Oh, we could do one more. Let's just try it again this way, and you'll never. But I really think it's good to have deadlines and parameters. For myself, as somebody who struggles with ADHD and OCD, it's like I really have to be a deadline guy and a system guy. Like it's like this has to be done this way because if I don't do it that way, my OCD kicks in, and then I forget something, and then my ADHD kicks into some rage, and then it's like nobody wants to see that guy. So especially me.
But it is important. I think people forget. And sorry guys, we're nerding out here, but like the frequency between a guitar and a bass, or two guitars, or you have a guitar or type of guitars, it all matters so much. And if you don't do it just right, you don't want it to all seems like too much, like it's this. But you gotta do it so it's like this. The fingers need to be close, but not like that. But they can't be all like crumpled up because when it gets muddy, those are the mixes that just are awful. And it's so important to get it right. And that's why people get lost in the studio, because you do it right. You can't explain why you did it right. People don't know. They go, that's good. They might not know why. You're like, I know why. The frequencies.
Well, totally, man. And the thing is like, you go back, you listen to like, the Police records, or you listen to Tears for Fears, 80s, what I would say, like these were big production records, but everything has its place. Nothing's really overproduced. Like even you take Yes 90125, right, which was arguably a difficult record for old Yes fans to embrace, but like that might be one of the most perfect records, top to bottom, that's ever existed for me. Anderson, Chris Squire, forget it, man. I mean, and I love the other original Yes, I do. But I'm just saying, when you listen to a record that's like made, like everything's in its place. Those it's a reference for me. But I mean, Trevor Horn is sort of like, I don't know if that guy's ever done anything that sucks, really.
He's great live. I finally got to see him live that many years ago when Anderson and him and they were doing something together. They did that album, I think.
Which one, with Anderson, Rabin, and
and Wakeman.
And Wakeman, I saw that tour. It was fucking great.
Wakeman had that big cape of his, and it reminded me, and it was like shivery, and it was like red. And I told my wife, I had a full picture of remember the candies your grandma used to have, and they're like these big orange things. They have like the red top. I pulled it up. I almost said it was exactly his cape. It was the exact same wrapper. He's fantastic, but I'm like, that was a great tour I saw. That was like 2016 or something, or 18 or something. Yeah,
it was great. It was great. Really, really.
Yeah, that was amazing. I want to say, you had done a song with your father, and one of the things was great. Is there a chance? Now you've talked about also recording. You were working on your solo album last time we chat, just finding your voice, recording a song with your dad. Even if it's a PG song. I mean, it's not so live. It's rough versions.
Well, here's the
Not
thing.
trying to put you in a weird spot either. I'm just saying, but we're talking
No, no,
about
no,
it.
not at all. I mean, when I moved back down to South Florida when I got clean, or when I was trying to get clean, you know, the only language my father and I really have together is music. So when I was struggling, he's like, "Hey, let's write a couple songs," and it wasn't like we're gonna do anything with them. Like, let's just use music to get through
I get it.
what
Yeah.
because you're clearly going through some shit was what he was kind of tapping into with me. So uh we wrote a song called Living in the Rain, and a couple of others that were just, he was just trying to get me to snap back into what's real in life, and those songs never really went anywhere or were really pursued. Those were exercises. That was me figuring out how to sing again after, just being, anything but a singer for a while. But we've written a whole bunch of songs for Barbra Streisand together now. A lot of that was on her Guilty Pleasures record. I co-wrote his last solo record, In the Now, with him, and that one was interesting because I think I ended up writing a lot more lyrics than I imagined I would. So he
Really.
he gave me a lot of freedom to fill out a lot of the stuff, because my dad, he's a great lyricist, obviously, but his real stock and trade is he's a master of finding melody in anywhere.
Yeah.
He'll just find it. He's like a truffle sniffing pig, but for melodies. I'm kidding. No, but he will find it. Nobody else will hear it, and
Yeah.
he'll find it, and then we're done. Yeah, we're moving on to the next. So so that kind of happened. That was interesting, because all of a sudden I realized, I'm not a bad lyricist, and I'm not, because I had a lot of issues, man. I'm a much happier person now, but it was, it was tough getting here. But the fact of the matter is that he was trying to teach me without teaching me. And I realized that throughout my life, I've never really taught myself anything. I've just thrown myself into situations that I was terrified of, that I wasn't qualified for in actual fact, but somehow managed to end up in a situation, whether it's by my own creation or the universe or whatever. And it's like, well, I'm here. I can either try and fail or run. I believe in trying and failing. I just think the more you fail. What I realized all that time is my dad was trying to teach me without teaching me. He was trying to teach me by, let's just do it. And you're going to figure it out because you did it. You know what I mean? Yep. So those records might not be the fans' favorites. And some of those songs might not be people's favorites. A lot of them never even got heard because those records, he released those records pretty late in his life. And I think at that point people were less interested, but
oh God, yeah. People just want the hits. They stopped. They just stopped when the hits. People emotionally. I got this theory where they just get. There's an age group, and you're younger, and you're emotionally invested. But once you start getting to certain parts of your life and older stuff, you change.
Yeah.
When you're older now, you get the money. You can do it back with the rock stuff. But your dad's like, it doesn't matter who you were. It was the audience is going to shrink up. It's not the same. They want.
Yeah.
They want what they were childhood.
Well, can you imagine, imagine every time, imagine you've done something your whole life and you're really good at it. And not only that, you've gotten better at it as you've gotten older because you've done it so much. And at such a high level. And then no matter what happens, people are like, but can you just give me another jive talking?
I actually talk about that on the show to people. Like they have a one-hit wonder. I'm like, you don't understand this band. You know why they're good at that song since then? They've done 3, 4, 5, 6 albums. They're all good albums. You can do a check out. Like I literally wave the flag to go check out all the music. I can't, like your dad being example. What makes me crazy, go back to the old interviews, and I would have killed to have time to sit down and say, can we just talk about Cucumber Castle, Odessa, like Death Album? Like I would love to have been able to talk to him when he was talking about that stuff. Yeah. Those songs, how they were written, like the process. Like nobody ever did that in interviews. They always talk about the same stupid stuff.
You know what? Just for your interest, there is a podcast that he did with Rick Rubin. I don't know, a couple years ago, during the pandemic when Dad had
Yeah.
released the Greenfields record. Rick did a podcast with him, and what was really cool about that is that for once there was somebody who actually was really pretty well versed in the more obscure Bee Gees music, and
Oh my God, I
so
love the first
I
like
think that
five
was a
albums.
little bit
Oh,
enjoyable for my dad to just at least for once somebody to ask a question about a record besides Saturday Night Fever, because there's it's like I was sitting there talking to we were in the studio the other day with Pep and Warren, and he's like, "How many records do the Bee Gees make?" And then we went on Spotify, and it's like he's like, "Oh, I want to know how many before Saturday Night Fever." And so
let
I
me guess,
showed him
8 maybe.
about that. There's about that
Ah,
many, yeah,
see, I love the old
and eight or
albums,
nine, 8 or 9. I got to look
but
again,
that's good. Come
but
on.
it's amazing. But then I said to him, I go, so there's that many records, okay? That's a decade, 8 records and 8 or 9 records in a decade, because one of them might be a live record. But there's that many records in a decade prior to Saturday Night Fever. Not to mention there was 2 or 3 records
Singles.
before Saturday Night Fever that were already alluding to what
Mhm.
Saturday Night Fever was going to be, whether it's Nights on Broadway, or Main Course was, people forget that
Right.
record even existed. That's a better disco record than
It
Saturday Night
is.
Fever in some ways. If you want to call it disco, they were trying to do R&B and funk,
It's a
but they were
good dance
white,
album.
so
Yeah.
everybody said it's disco. But anyway, it's
I'm
like,
gonna check that
and
out.
then
That,
and then
but that,
and then the interesting thing is after Saturday Night Fever, there's all of the stuff in the 80s that they did for other people. Then there's all the stuff they
mhm.
did in the 90s and the early 2000s. That's another 10 records. Not to mention, and I'm not here to brag about my dad and my uncle's accomplishments,
No,
but it's just amazing to me because now I'm in the business. It's a hard business. You see how many personal friends of mine are very successful, and it's like, yeah, but all they ever want to hear is their first record. You know what I mean? And it's like, meanwhile, they've made great shit the whole time. You know,
I talk about it. It's
um,
even hard to promote in the show because I'll be like, "Hey, we gotta promote this one because I know that your PR person wants to promote it," but I'll
yeah.
get sidetracked talking about something else because
Well, yeah,
I
but I mean,
love the obscure stuff. That's what it's all about. That's what's exciting stuff. You know.
totally. Well, what's one of the things that I think I try to remind my dad of sometimes because it may or may not be true. I don't have a crystal ball, but sometimes I'm like, Dad, sometimes it's like, we don't really get to be in charge of what the public or the fans what they make with the things we create, right? But in many cases, if you look at various kinds of whether it be painters, artists, there's many musicians, even classical musicians, whatever, jazz musicians that they don't get any of their due while they're alive.
No.
It's all posthumous, and I think that my hope is that my dad will be posthumously someday appreciated in a different way and seen as more of the songwriter that he really was than the cute guy in the tight pants, you know with the long
See, that's
hair
not what turned
beard.
me for. To be honest with you, I didn't care. I love
I
him.
know.
You let him know. You talk somebody that loves the first like
Yeah,
5 albums. Like they're like the best albums. Like I listen to them like regular. Like I listen to that stuff more than I listen to the other stuff. Like to me, it's like a separate
yeah,
band. It's like a separate time. It's like so. It's so good. Like
yeah.
I really love those
Well,
albums. And to me, I'm like,
think about
I
this, man. Think about this. You remember when do you remember when Robert Plant started releasing solo records in the 80s because
yeah, no
there
one
was no more
cared.
Zeppelin? Those are some of the best records to
They
me.
are.
I love
I
those
agree.
records.
I do
Nobody
too.
wanted to hear them. They were like, there's no guitar, there's no Jimmy Page, there's no big drums. Those are amazing records.
I can't think
There's
of who's the
amazing
guitarist he had.
songs
The
on them.
guitarist he also had was fantastic.
Robbie Blunt,
They, thank you.
that guy's amazing. I love
Especially
that.
if you
He's
go
one of
try
my
playing
favorite
the
guitar
guitar and
players.
go back and play the guitar. That's the other way you discover how good a guitar player is. You're like, oh, these chords are beautiful. Like I didn't hear that
Yeah.
when I heard it.
Yeah, I always used to think it
Fantastic.
was like a lame, it's very clean, it's
Yep.
whatever. It's like I went and learned it a while ago and I was like, oh man, this yeah,
Yes.
guy's well, I mean, so Western Shores, the single is coming out on the 15th of this, which is
Mhm.
coming out today, actually. So we
Yep.
got that. Right now, due to vinyl, lead times and everything, I'm shooting for a July release for the record. It looks like we got a July release. Yeah, it could change, but shooting for the Kill the Robot self-titled first record to come out in July.
Nice.
I'm actually looking to record and have another robot record out early next year. We're booking some shows and a tour for 2026 right now, and really just trying to build this thing up to be able to take it out there to the people. We've had some great responses so far, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and we just
I
keep
think you
going.
guys would be good on different bills too, where people could kind of not know who you are and come in because they've experienced
That'd
it
be
with other
great.
artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're looking at a few of those opportunities right now, and it's just bit by bit, brick
I
by
think you could
brick.
steal some audiences by doing it that way. That would be kind of a way to kind of slide in.
I mean, I don't want to brag, but it's happened already once, and it was a pretty interesting show. I don't
I'm
want to
telling you, that's
brag,
what. Yeah, no, it's true though.
but we were the first opener on a big national show that came through Fort Lauderdale, and there was
Yeah.
three other pretty well known bands on the bill, and we got their crowd right out of the gate, and I was like, oh shit, this is good. So
I'm saying you're good.
I mean, it's I'm a musician. I'll do whatever I can to keep doing this, man. I just love playing, and it's not really about anything else for me, man. It's really not, and
Okay.
that's the best. I don't have any sort of
No,
ego about whether
that's
this
cool. What
happens or
about
that happens. I just
the solo? Because so the thing is there a chance that you'd ever do a song, either like re-record a song with your dad, and what about the solo album you've been working on forever?
doesn't want to do anything. Is happy with that. I will say that we did sneak my dad into some background vocals on one of the songs on the new Kill the Robot record. But if you want to hear that, you're going to have to buy the record, because I don't know
Perfect.
that we're releasing that as a single yet, but it'll be on the record in July. And, dad's down the hallway. You know what I mean? Like,
It's
we'll
more about
make
you singing a
records.
song with your dad, recording it as you both artists. It's more that's the question. It's not about celebrity or sales. To me, I'm like,
No.
man, you guys have written stuff together.
Well, and
Cool, anything ever.
the truth is, Sean, is that if he wants to, I'm right down the hall, and I'll just turn it on and be like, yeah, let's go, dude. So it really is up to him. You know what I mean? I'm here. He knows I'm here for him, and I love him, and I do that at the drop of a hat. But I also don't like to bother him, because he's him and I'm me, and that's okay. But it's like when he sang backgrounds on a song on the Kill the Robot record. We didn't ask him. He was walking past the door of the studio, and he knocked on the door. He's like, "What's going on in there? What's that section?" I go, "I don't know what you're talking about. That's just the break after the chorus." And he goes, "I hear something." And I said, "Well, go in there and show us what you hear." And then what he sang on the mic is what ended up on the record, because he's like, "Yeah, just get your singer to sing that." And I go, he's not singing that. That's just you. Why don't you just double it and then put your harmonies in there?" And he goes, "Okay." And then just fucking, 10 minutes later, it was done. I was like,
That's awesome.
and I just looked at Warren. I was like, so that's how that's done. I guess we can pack up for the day.
That's awesome. Well, Steve, I want to thank you for the time.
Thank you, bud.
Crazy.
It's always a pleasure, Sean. And